I hereby call on September 20th, 23, a meeting of the Town of Hanson Economic Development Committee to order at, well, it says 6:30, but 6:52. I would also like to announce for all those in attendance that this meeting is being recorded for distribution on Whitman Hanson Community Access. Playback times and other related information on this recording can be found at whca.tv. Well, that is fabulous. Okay, we have got Mr. Ernst, Mr. Cohen, and Ms. Kemet present. So we do have a quorum, and we are missing Mr. Sweezy and Mr. Bathlon. And we must address probably whether Mr. Bathlon is still have the ability to be on the Economic Development Committee. So I will reach out to him. Mr. Sweezy is in Maryland and had a work conflict. So, okay. So first up is minutes. Approved minutes from July 26, 2023 Economic Development Committee. Did you guys have an opportunity to review those? And did you have any comments or tweaks or concerns? All right.
No comments.
I will entertain.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes
Fantastic.
from the July 26, 2023 meeting. Second.
All right, great. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, fantastic. Got a lot of territory for me because Tony's got a very, like a time-slotted agenda here, so I feel like a gun to my head. All right.
That's just to keep
We're
us-
already 20 minutes behind. All right, now, discuss Hanson Day results. Well, I'd love to discuss the results, but we haven't had Hanson Day yet. It's not happening until this coming Saturday. So, based on, I kind of had to make a quick decision today. And everybody was checking in, what are you guys doing about the rain? And I am a very hopeful person. I am very much a, glass half full person. But as I saw the rain probability going to 99% for Saturday, I said, okay, you need to call it. And so I called the schools and asked whether they might allow us to use either Indian Head or the middle school, and I really didn't expect that they would have either of the facilities available. But as luck would have it, they did have both available, and they asked which I would prefer, and I made the executive decision to go with Hanson Middle School. Just I think the flow, the parking, and the gym and the cafeteria, I think the flow would work out better. So they're going to have tables there for us. That saves us from having to get porta potties, which we had Charlie running around doing. And then we don't need to worry. It can rain, it can pour, it doesn't matter because we're going to be indoors.
Are you going to get the food truck inside?
We are not going to get the food truck inside, but we are going to still have the food trucks. And Kevin's reaching out to them.
So, update on that. We do have Wally Jolly food truck coming, which they couldn't have made it to our original date, but they will be at
that looks amazing. I looked at their website. Yep.
They already contacted the Board of Health and took care of that. We also have the Lions, Rockland Lions, that will be grilling outside.
Okay.
I believe they're doing maybe like hot dogs, hamburgers, sausages, that sort of thing. And then I think you had said Heidi's was coming?
Yes.
Yeah,
Chris is coordinating.
I'm going to follow up with Candace. I sent her the email that had been moved inside and said I hoped she could still join us, but I will plan to call her tomorrow to make sure. Because their thing is it's a cart on wheels, so that I don't see any reason why they can't.
So you think they could be inside even, probably? Okay, that would be awesome. I'm gonna drive down there tomorrow and kind of mentally map out. You guys know, I usually have my little floor plan with all of my little markers, but that's all been thrown up in the air, so I have to do a new floor plan this year, and it's fine. I've done it before. I used to have, for years, I had a kids fitness festival up at Hanson High School. And so I've had a lot of indoor events, but I haven't done one at middle school, so this will be interesting. I'm going to have to take measurements, figure out how many tables can fit in each one, and then I know you had said that the food truck folks obviously want to be accessible, so
Yeah,
that they're not standing there with nobody,
I
you
think
know.
their fear is just that the flow is right, that you can see them coming and going.
I'm just gonna
from the
talk,
inside
I'm
to the
gonna talk to
outside.
fire and
Yep.
just be like,
Exactly.
where is the optimal space that we can put them, where I'm not gonna have you guys shutting me down, because I'm not allowing like
Exactly.
proper fire flow, so. So I'm hoping, in my ideal mind, I would like to have them in those front parking spots. You know, right up in
Exactly, yeah.
front, but we'll have to block that off, so
Okay,
that's my ideal situation. Then we also have the monkey wrench of a moonwalk, but have no fear, because Mr. Kemet and I have been down this Primrose Path before, and I already told the school that we would be putting a moonwalk inside the gym. And I said, we've done this before, we put the generator outside, so we don't have any
Yep.
CO2 situation. And I put Mr. Kemet on generator duty to make sure that it does not
Nice.
collapse with any unwitting children caught in the moonwalk. And so we'll do that, and I gotta reach out to Greg DeLu, because I think he was gonna do a football, not football, basketball, some kind of an inflatable there, and we similarly will do that. Ann Rain had very kindly volunteered to lend us her generator, so we'll still need that. And then other than that, I've got to kind of think about the space that people told me they needed and kind of place them. Now, there were a couple of businesses that weren't able to come because of the date changing. LA Hair Design, and I don't know, I don't even have, let me see. Did you have the list in here?
It is in there.
Okay, great, yeah, then I can tell you. So, Bathoni Karate can't come, LA Hair Design can't come, Fanny's Homemade Soup, Homemade Soaps can't come, and 4-H. We didn't lose like a ton. Oh, and unfortunately, the tick racing guy can't come because he was already booked. I know, bummer. And Special Olympics, and that's it. So we're still in pretty good shape. The one I was really afraid of was Plymouth County Sheriff. They book up a lot at this time of the year because there's a lot of fall festivals and stuff that they said they absolutely are planning on being, and there's no problem. And we lucked out, we were able to get Ziva, our new comfort dog, is going to come by for 2 hours, so I'm secretly thrilled, and I probably will need her services by the time she shows up at the event. So I'm excited about that. So we've still got a good kind of like combination of businesses, nonprofits and all of that. Were you gonna say something?
Oh, yeah, was Hanson Police still gonna do the dog demonstration or no?
That was Plymouth County
Oh,
Sheriff.
that's Plymouth
Yeah,
County Sheriff.
Plymouth
Okay,
County
that's
Sheriff
what
is
you're
doing the
talking
canine, the drug sniffing.
Okay.
Yeah.
about. So they can do that inside?
Yep,
Okay.
yeah, in fact, for years with my kids' fitness festival, I always had them do it inside.
Nice.
And they were thrilled, they're like, we're thrilled you guys are having the event, we're thrilled it's gonna be inside, because we don't have to think about it. So, we still are able to provide some tables, but I really pushed back on people because the school district only has 20 tables they can lend us. There's a few up at Camp Kawani that we can leverage, but then it gets into a 3-ring circus of trying to figure out which tables came from where, and I'd just as soon try to keep it. So I really said to people, sure, you can join us, but can you bring your own table? So a lot of people will be doing that. And then after I said all that, I thought, did I just complicate things for myself? Because now I'm gonna have to leave spaces for people who bring their own tables. But anyway, we'll deal with it. We're gonna be there starting at like 9-ish, 9:30, somewhere in there. And to the extent I can get in there tomorrow night, I'm going to, but I'm still working on that, to try to mark stuff out. If not, we'll have to do it on the fly before everybody gets there at 11. The only thing that really matters is that everybody ends up having a space that they're comfortable with, and that if there's pandemonium, nobody attending goes. Those are the 2 criteria. Any thoughts,
I
any
had
concerns?
2 things.
Yeah.
Hanson Little League reached out because they were planning on grilling free hot dogs for everybody.
Oh, they are.
Their thought process was we probably would scrap that
Okay.
I say that we because I'm on the board for Little League. The thought
Yeah.
process was we would probably scrap that. Does that make sense?
It does make
Especially
sense,
if
but
the
I thought
Lions are-
Rockland Lions was gonna do fried dough. Did they change what they were going to
They originally
do?
were going to, but the issue was, they needed to have the Board of Health inspect their truck, and they wanted to go a quicker route of just grilling outside instead.
Okay.
So we can forego the
So I don't think.
Okay.
the hot dogs for the Little League. They were fine with that. They wanted to make sure it wasn't, that was their suggestion,
Yeah.
was to forego
Okay,
doing
that's
it.
fine, that's fine.
Uh,
That's a new, that's a
Yeah,
new wrinkle.
I was just gonna say, I think we were kind of dessert heavy anyway, with, now that we have Lolly Jolly truck coming. And
Heidi's.
Heidi's. We did have Ellie's Treats, but they backed out of a rain date. And we had local Larry's that backed out of a
I'm
rain
bummed
date.
out. I
too, which
really
was-
wanted local Larry's.
Yeah, that was a bummer.
Anyway, yeah.
A lot of these food trucks this time of year, they're already
I
booked
get
up.
it. Yes, I had talked to Teresa from the Board of Health, and she told me, I know I had gotten an email from you that the Lions
Oh,
were having
yeah.
some difficulty, and she said she thought that they were going to be okay.
Oh, okay,
So
yeah.
but that was
Yeah,
early
I
last
could,
week.
I could see if they wanted to add fried dough back. I think it's a pretty easy thing for them to do. I know they already, have a.
As long as they're okay with the Board of Health, they can do whatever they want.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Whatever they want to sell, I'm
Yeah.
good with it, as long as it's.
I think they were just concerned about how quickly the Board of Health issues their certificate.
They meet on Tuesdays, and they met today, so
Oh, okay.
I'm assuming
Yeah.
everything was in good shape,
Yeah.
they would be fine. I
But
think.
it seemed like Lolly Jolly had a very good experience. It happened really quickly and.
And Heidi's is totally fine, because
Yeah.
they're already
They're already
licensed and
compliant,
everything. Now, the one other little wrinkle, because there's always one, I'm sure there'll be others, but, was our DJ was only secured for the 16th. I don't think it's really gonna be a problem, we just need some kind of like music playing in the background and a mic in case mostly the only thing we're gonna need to announce is the canine demonstration, which we can yell if we had to, but I mean, so I don't think it's gonna be a really huge problem, so.
Is there anyone that can set up a
I was
soundboard?
gonna
Well-
say, maybe the school might have like a small little sound system.
I can ask about that, I will
I know like
ask.
at Indian Head,
Yeah,
they have a small sound system in the gym, so maybe they've got something similar.
all right, I will ask
I
about
know you
that.
said Joe was out for that, so. you need to-
Joe, Mr. Campbell, I have
Yeah.
prevailed upon Mr. Campbell's good graces for many years, for many of my
Yeah.
nonprofit fundraising efforts, and he's been a good egg, but my understanding is that he has had domestic negotiations that would preclude him from doing this any further, so I don't want to tamper with those negotiations. So we need to move on in a different direction, so. I'll ask Jan Hurstack about the sound system. We know they've got one, I just don't know, whether you can, like, I know it's in the auditorium, but I'm not really sure,
I had one other thing, which is the moonwalk.
yes.
Because having it last Saturday, I was gonna pick it up. But I have a football game to coach at 8 AM in Situate on this Saturday morning.
Okay.
Regardless of weather, we'll be
Yeah.
playing. So
Okay,
would somebody be able to get the moonwalk from Country Rebels? They open at 7 AM.
Wait, which one is that, Rock?
The one up here.
it's a
Up
Hanson.
there.
I'll see if I can fit that in,
Do you think you could take one for the team on that?
Yeah, I could probably do that.
Okay, all right.
If we
And-
get stuck with the sound system, let me know, because we have, it's not a great PA
No, but
system, but
it's-
we have a PA system that we use for opening day and whatnot.
Okay.
And I could probably grab that like Friday night and maybe bring it to you or something.
I'll know by tomorrow, I'll just
Okay.
ask, and I'm sure Jan will let me know right away,
Okay.
so. Okay,
But we do have a system. I will be there for the day. I probably won't make it till 10:30, 10:30.
whatever time you're there, don't worry about it.
And they're open 7 AM?
He said they open at 7, we can grab it anytime after 7.
I plan on being at the school to help set up at 9, so I picked up 8:30. Just threw it in the van and came on down.
Okay,
As long as someone else can help me set it up.
I'm sure John can help you set it up.
Oh, yeah. All right,
I've
sounds
sort of
good.
I've sort of assigned John to the moonwalk, I just haven't mentioned it to him. But he knows that, like, every event I have with is a moonwalk, I count
his
on
deal,
him.
yeah.
He's the moonwalk guy, so.
Would that be
Poor
part of
guy.
those domestic negotiations?
Exactly, yeah. It's implied, if there's a moonwalk, he's our guy.
Should that be written in the minutes?
So, yeah, make sure you put that down. He's the official moonwalk guy. Okay, anything else on Hanson Day? They changed it on the Town of Hanson Facebook. I changed the event on Facebook. I sent emails to all participants telling them that there was a change, and to let me know if they had a problem. I let the town clerk know, just in case anybody was asking her about it. Obviously, I let town administrator and the admin know. So Charlie's gonna take care of getting us all work with the school district on getting all the tables that we need there for Saturday. So I think we're in good shape. I'm sure some monkey wrench will be thrown into the works, but we'll just zig and zag and we'll handle it appropriately. So any other questions on that? Okay. It was honestly, it was either reschedule it for inside or cancel it altogether or kick the can down the road. And frankly, the anxiety of kicking the can down the road every weekend was just like,
Yeah.
it was a little, I was like, no, I need to get on with what little life I have and not keep kicking the can down the road. So hopefully you guys are okay with us just doing it inside. All right, so that brings us to discuss Hanson Economic Development Plan prepared in 2019 by FXM Associates. Update. Mr. DeFries.
So, the committee had asked me to look into that report and see what the costs would be about potentially updating it to 2023. So I spoke with Mr. Mahady, who's the president of the company, and asked him to provide me with a proposal. So he did so. And so he provided a proposal, the scope of work, initial meeting, but I think we should probably just go right past all that, because I think the key thing that will determine whether or not the board or the committee wishes to move forward is the fact that he's pricing it out at $40,400.
How much did we originally pay for it?
About the same.
And so he's saying to freshen it up.
To freshen it up with the items that we had listed, say the 10 items we had listed.
All of which is available on public government documentation.
You have what you see in front of you there, what's that page, 404? Yeah, he figures it'd be about $40,000, which, you know, I nearly fell out of my chair when I saw that.
That's ridiculous.
So I guess my next question becomes to the committee, what would you like to do? Would you like to proceed with the 2019 as you have it and try to work as best? Or possibly pursue, let's say, discussion with Mr. Mahady and say, hey, listen, we don't have, or ask, or do you want me to engage with him and say, look, $40,000 is not the number that we're gonna be able to do for this, you know?
I'm having difficulty understanding how that would be appropriate, considering that we're asking for a refresher on a report that he's already put together. This seems, well, I will not use the adjectives that I want to use. This seems
Bit of overkill?
a bit of overkill, perhaps outrageous comes to mind, some other phrases come to mind. And we are not that town that's just gonna hand over $40,000 for, like, honestly, in my mind, I was expecting it to be absolutely no more than $15,000. More like 10, to be honest with you. He
Yeah.
has all of the data
Yeah.
already. And so presumably, he just needs to plug in the last 4 years, because it was done in 2019. I'm befuddled.
Well, he has his, obviously, as you can see, there's his hours, what his billing rate is, and what the hours that he expects it would take to complete the project, which he believes is about 184 hours total to look up the information. I mean, the alternative I suppose could be maybe looking at, say, Old Colony Planning Council to see if we pass this information on to them and ask them, hey, would you be able to provide us something equivalent but for a lot less money?
I think that's a great idea, or do they know anybody else who could use what this gentleman has put together and freshen it up? It made sense to me to go back to the original source, because I thought it would be much
Home
less
field
heavy lifting.
Right, he has home field advantage, he has.
Yeah. He was clear that he already did this report for us, right? And this
Yes.
was just a refresh?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
I mean, I could reach out to Old Colony Planning Council if the committee wishes. And I could also reach out to Mr. Mahady and just say, listen, thought it was pretty clear on the fact that this was a refresh, and it was just really, $40,000.
Like, he's talking about 6 to 10 contacts. We don't want him to do all of that stuff again. We're not looking for him to, like, make contacts and have interviews and all that type of stuff. We just wanted the data to be refreshed.
Okay. So,
I mean, I guess he probably does need to talk to a couple of businesses to see how they've been impacted by by COVID, how they've changed, maybe, but like, it isn't the same, I don't know.
so I could reach out to him and say, listen, we're looking for the data specifically to be refreshed. I mean, I can reach out to him again and see if he could come up with a better number. If not, I can also, but at the same time, I could reach out to Old Colony Planning Council and see if that's something they could help us with.
So I find it interesting that he has told us how much each task is going to be. So yes, I would love if you could reach out to him, push back, see how negotiable this is and all of that. And then I'm wondering whether we cherry pick the more important, like of some of these things that I'm looking at, like one of the very important things is the retail restaurant gap analysis for the town center commercial area. We need that, that's for sure. Because it speaks to really why we were originally gonna freshen this up, which was to work with the Metro Chamber of Commerce to see if we could recruit people. Well, how are we gonna recruit businesses if we don't know what the gap is, right? So that we really need. And, yeah. All right, well, see if you can work some magic on that. Like, they're talking about a housing demand model, and while that is important, and I don't think that it's, it's something that the town doesn't need, I don't know that it's the economic development. Like, we've got a housing authority, they have a housing production plan. I don't want there to be redundancies, and yeah.
The most expensive thing on here is the strategy formulation too, which I'd be curious like what that actually consists of.
Yeah, what is this?
Because that's the most expensive line item.
Yeah.
And I don't think he really gets, he doesn't really just, I guess it's in here, optional. Prepare an interim report, inform the town of technical findings that can be considered.
Drawing upon result, where are you on? The optional
Some page,
economic,
yeah.
okay. Drawing upon the results of the market analysis and interviews, FXM will prepare an interim report presentation. The objective of this presentation will be to inform the town of relevant technical findings that can be considered in formulating detailed goals and objectives for economic development, as well as specific initiative to realize those objectives. FXM will address in qualitative and quantitative terms, to the extent practicable, the differences in prospective market absorption, job generation. I think this is getting into a level of stuff that we're not, he's in the stratosphere here. We're just boots on the ground, trying to figure out what businesses do we need to attract to business. Like, what businesses would be interested in locating in Hanson? That's what we're looking for.
And we may have someone in the audience who may actually be able to lend some information to
Yeah.
that.
So,
I mean, that's $7,500, just whatever that
My fees are way less. So yeah.
Seems like there's some scope misunderstanding.
Well, I mean, Tony asked us what,
Yeah.
we went through the original thing and said, well, we'd like a refresh on this, a refresh on that, a refresh on.
Which is what I passed along to
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
Well, good thing we didn't pick everything.
Yeah, he's getting into like a level that's, yes, I understand, like if we were looking at the town's overall economic health, yes, we would need to get into this level of detail. I think we need to keep our eye on the ball, and I don't want to get sidetracked with all kinds of other stuff. There's two things that we really need to know, and I don't know if we need this one from him, which is, what is the housing gap in town? You know, like what people are looking for, you know, what do we have, what could we have? And then, what businesses should we be targeting to attract to Hanson? Where do we have deficits that businesses can fill? And beyond that, he's getting into like our economic health versus other towns' economic health. Like, we don't need him to tell us any of that. And besides which, Tony, you may want to check in with Lisa, because we've got that other gentleman that we hired with the grant who's doing a lot of our financial health work and working on the 5-year strategy.
Mr. Madden?
Yeah, Madden. So it seems like there'd be a lot of redundancies there, and unnecessary redundancies, and that's a case where we already have funded that study, and it's already underway. Of course, at the time when we originally went to FXM, that wasn't the case, so
Right.
we can remove some of that, I think, from the ask. So maybe between all of that, that will get the price tag down to something more reasonable. Do you guys agree?
Yep.
Agreed.
Okay. But that's shocking.
Yeah.
Okay. It irritates me when people try to do a money grab on the town. I'm not saying that's absolutely the case, but that's just what it feels like. Okay. Discuss Main Street Boardwalk location.
So, I reached out to Brigantis, who provided just a scope and work cost estimate. And this would be using earmark money that was provided to Hanson. So going through their work, if we just get to the bottom line, really. So they would figure, so feasibility, concept design, and cost opinion, they figured that it would be $44,400. So one of the key things too is the fact of where should this go, and that's not what this proposal necessarily talks about, but this is what would be part of the proposal. So where would it be the best location for the boardwalk? Where should it go? I have had a conversation with Mr. Clemens from the Conservation Commission, and he has some input or interest, I should say, in the boardwalk, and he has some ideas of where he thinks that the boardwalk might fit best down off the Main Street area. He had one area in particular behind what would be the old Ocean Spray, and sort of into the Burridge area, so to speak.
Yes, that's what Mr. Kemet had suggested, and I think Mr. Dyer, when they were talking about it.
Yeah, so I guess there's an area, let's say, between, there's a crossing there
Yes,
now, and they
yes.
said that might be a good spot for it.
Do
So
we have an easement, or is that town property, or?
I believe, you know what, I'm not even gonna answer because I'm not sure. So I'd
Okay.
have to find out. So that's one of those things where if the committee is interested, I could sort of, let's say, loop in or coordinate with Mr. Clemens on maybe coming up with some ideas that might be the best location for the boardwalk, and then pursue, let's say, executing this proposal.
Did Mr. Skellinger agree with,
Well, Mr. Clemens came to see me on his own. Dr. Skellinger wasn't with him. So,
I'd very much like to have Dr. Skellinger's viewpoint on that too,
okay.
as our, you know,
Mhm.
as our conservation agent.
So if the committee consents, basically I'll work with them to try and make a determination of where's the best spot to put the boardwalk.
Yeah, I think
That'd
that.
be the most
yeah.
feasible and most cost effective.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense, because, I mean, you know, there is that, it is really something that's simpatico with what they're doing, which is we're trying to kind of
Mhm.
create a pathway to conservation, you know, property, not necessarily owned by the town, but the state and the town. Okay, that's awesome, and then the cost.
The cost comes out of the earmark that was
That's-
given to the town. The town was given 177,000 to split between the boardwalk, Bonnie House, and the High Street Park.
Okay,
So, I think we're trying to do sort of a, to be fair, split it into thirds.
yes,
You know,
yep,
if that works best.
Yep.
But, you know, obviously if we dedicated 50,000 towards this, you know, you have, they're coming in just under 45, you know, maybe use 50,000 towards this and the rest goes towards Bonnie House in the park
Mhm.
or the High Street hospital site, the former hospital site. So,
I think, you know, also to keep in mind, both of those projects have got access to community preservation money. We may also have access to community preservation money for the build. You can also use community preservation money for design. We, you know, but I feel comfortable with us using this money for this. And then I think there's many other sources of money for those other two projects, so, yeah.
so I'll work with them on trying to find the best location.
Yeah, and is some thought, I would assume, is going to be given to parking, where people might be able to park?
Yeah, I think we'll have to try and figure something out, you know, so they can get there. And I think Mr. Cummins, knowing the area as well as he does, probably has some ideas on that.
Well, we did just take down that garage at the fire station.
Yeah,
It's not a huge amount of parking, but it might be something,
sure.
and it's very close,
Yeah,
so. We don't want people getting hit trying to go to the boardwalk.
this is true.
Yeah. Okay, great. All right, then that brings us to, did you guys have anything else? You good on that?
And that's fine.
All right, awesome. Discuss creation of outreach video through Whitney Hanson Cable Access.
Okay, so now that we're sort of, let's say, past the summer, I think now it's time to sort of get real with this
Yeah.
and start looking at creating the videos that the committee wants to do. So I'm going to speak with the folks over there. His name's, and I don't want to get it wrong, Gullickson. So I'll
Yes.
speak with Mr. Gullickson and try and set up a meeting with him and or members of the committee. I know that you work during the day, so, and then he has his schedule. Try and maybe set up either a meeting with one or the whole committee, or maybe we could do it remotely, and then have a good conversation with them and give them a direction as to what you want to do and try and schedule time, let's say studio time or whatever, to start getting the ball rolling and get it off the ground.
Okay, that sounds good. What kind of availability did you guys get during the day if it was a Zoom call?
The Zoom's no
Are
problem.
you able to do that, or is that
Yeah,
tricky for you?
no, I could make,
Okay, I
almost
mean,
say
yeah,
Zoom,
but,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know, obviously,
It's on-
certain days might not work, but, okay, so, you know, kind of work around his availability. If he can come to a meeting, great. If he can't come to a meeting, then we could do a Zoom call with him.
I tried to, I did ask him to, if he was able to come to one of our meetings, but obviously his schedule is busy as well. So it's difficult for him to attend night meetings, because a lot of things he's doing is at night.
Even if he's willing to Zoom in on a night meeting, so that's another option, you know, if he wants to do, he doesn't have to physically be with us, he could Zoom in.
So I think that that's gonna be the next step, is to, get serious about.
Yeah, because we have to define the scope of what is the message we want to get, how are we going to deliver it, frequency, all that stuff. What can they offer us for support?
Mhm.
Okay. All right, discuss investigating the expansion of the flexible overlay zone. Mr. DeFries.
So I'm just gonna pull up here the town zoning map. Okay. So we have our flexible overlay zones, which there's a zoning map in your packets. So this is on West Washington Street, you have a flexible overlay zone. And then we have along Main Street, the flex zone, which stops at High Street. Our flex overlay zone, in essence, is, I'll call it a quasi 40R, minus the affordable housing aspect. I think now with our 40R, it allows for mixed-use retail on the bottom, residences above. So the Egan project is a clear example of what we allow in the flex zone. And I think that if we're looking to create economic development in Hanson, that maybe an expansion, and this will sort of tie into the next one, which is also the business zone, so we could sort of put them together. I think if we're looking for economic development, we should consider potentially expanding our flex overlay zone, and I was thinking pretty much along Main Street to Route 58. And also expanding some of these business zones that fall along Main Street. I think considering that Main Street is, let's say, a focal or a focus point for the committee, that might be, if you look at between Phillips and High Street, you have a business zone. You have a business zone along Elm Street. You have a business zone, Indian Head Street.
I did not know that Hawks Ave was in a commercial industrial. People lost their minds and acted like we were trying to do something inappropriate when we talked about using that building for something. But it turns out that was already zoned for commercial industrial?
Yes.
Okay.
And we've had folks come in for something on Crooker Place at one point, and that was shot down. So I guess, I think the other potential areas for, let's say, expanding the business zone is obviously along Liberty Street. We have from Winter up to East Washington Street, but maybe we should consider looking at expansion from Winter Street over, maybe out to McQuon or beyond. I'm looking basically the thoughts of the committee. Is there support? What are your thoughts? Because I know that obviously as you bring, ultimately, any type of zoning change that's gonna create this overlay, expand this overlay, or the business zone, is gonna go to town meeting.
Yes.
And it'll either live or die there.
Well,
But
it
is there
yeah.
an appetite, at least, as the Economic Development Committee, what's your opinion, what's your comfort level or appetite for potentially expanding these zones to increase the business?
I definitely think 27 and 58, we should push the envelope as far as we can on both of those routes. To the extent that they're not already zoned appropriately. When we start getting into some of the areas that are residential, I think we need to really think about that. If there's a particular section that isn't super populated, or for instance, I'm trying to think, well, I guess our little industrial park is in the.
Yeah, it's in the commercial industrial, it's
Yeah.
already in the commercial industrial area.
I think we just want to be careful, because one of the things that we hear a lot is people don't want things to change, right? They like the small little town feel. but they also want more commercial base so they don't have to pay as much in taxes. So obviously, one of these things is not like the other, we can't, but we can modestly increase our commercial base by stretching those zones out a little bit. I think that's fine, but if we were to say like, I don't know, say that some random, trying to think, like West Washington or, like further than it already is, I think people would get pretty prickly about like if we were gonna say County Road or,
I'm not thinking of creating necessarily a new business zone, let's say along County Road. But when I look at, say, let's say Liberty Street, so we have this business zone.
yep,
And one of the key things that happens is that with this line right here, where if you look on the screen, this line right here, okay, it cuts across a single lot, and the member of the audience that's here, that lot, because it's transected by that zoning line, has had, while I've been here, probably at least 3 attempts that have failed to try and get business in there. And the reason is because that zoning line transects that lot, and basically, so that.
can you give me a landmark so that I can visualize where I'm?
Yeah, let me see if I can.
So
That's
that, the lot that you're speaking of?
Oh, okay, is it, okay, so it's Bo Dyer had that lot?
He did.
Okay, all right, so it's between Ed Sheehan and the VCA? Okay, all right, that's helpful, because
Yeah.
I was thinking it was further up the road, so,
It's pretty chopped up.
okay.
So that is, that's hurting that lot from becoming a business. The entire lot itself, it's not very wide, but it meets the zoning. And it's
So it's a
deep, and it's
conforming
long.
lot,
Yes.
and
But
it's not on conservation? Okay, I thought
So-
the back portion of that was wet.
What hurts it is the fact that it's the zoning line that's killing it. It's really,
Can you just let the board know the difference between business zones for the requirements versus?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Because I know it's a big difference, and
So business versus industrial, commercial?
like
Yeah.
the zoning requirements.
the zoning requirements,
Yeah.
like the frontage requirement
Yes.
and the land area.
Thank you, Kevin,
requirement.
because
Yeah.
I have no idea about that, yeah.
I know I've seen it somewhere.
No, that's an important point.
Yeah.
And also, it depends on what, if it's, what the district is, it depends on what type of business can be
Exactly,
located
yeah.
there, so.
I think if I'm not mistaken, I think it might be 44,000 square feet required, but we'll see. I thought at first he was talking about the J.
That's what I was
Okay,
thinking, so
so-
I'm glad I asked, because I definitely thought it was the
Because I
JJ's.
think that
So your
might be
commer-
restricted to.
Yes.
Your commercial industrial requires 44,000 square feet of land area and 200 feet of frontage. Business zone requires 44,000 square feet of land area and 150 feet of frontage.
150, okay.
Yeah.
And what is commercial again?
Commercial industrial is 44,000 square feet, 200 feet of frontage.
All right. So, for instance, walk me through this in a tangible way. If we were to propose that this changed to commercial industrial, what could be located there that can't be located there now?
Well, and obviously any of the uses that are allowed within that commercial industrial zone would.
Yeah, so can you?
Or same thing as a business zone.
All right, so like, what, funeral home? I'm making stuff up, I don't even know.
So for, which one would you like first, commercial, industrial, or business?
Yeah, commercial industrial, because
Okay.
it's business right now, that little section, right?
So in commercial industrial, it says, research laboratories, uses A, B, C, and D, and H permitted in business district, manufacturing enterprises, building materials, sales rooms and yards for automobiles, bicycles, boats, farm implements and similar equipment, terminals, utility structures, contractors' yards, storage of warehouses, yards and buildings and wholesale distribution plants. Printing, publishing, and commercial photographic establishments, medical or dental laboratories. Cafeterias for employees and other normal accessory uses would contain the same structure as permitted. Theaters, halls, bowling alleys, skating rinks, marinas, clubs, and other places of amusement or assembly. Licensed kennels by special permit of the Board of Appeals. So in the business district, you have retail store or service establishment, the principal activity of which shall be the offering of goods or services at a retail within the building, business or professional offices of banks, restaurants, membership clubs, parking areas or garages for use of employees, customers, or visitors, public, religious, or denominational schools, hospitals, churches, and religious buildings or uses, theaters, museums, bowling alleys, and other commercial amusement provided all business is conducted within the structure, gasoline service stations provided that repairs are inside the building, and no storage of motor vehicles on the premises other than those being worked on, motels and hotels, accessory buildings and uses, licensed kennels by special permit, sales rooms and yards for automobiles, body art establishments, including but not limited to tattooing and body piercing.
So that's already permitted,
Yes.
okay.
So the key thing I want to,
And if somebody wants to use the property for something other than what it's already zoned for, I go to the ZBA?
there are special permits allowed in the ZBA for certain conditions.
Okay.
So while we're looking at this particular lot, you're saying that it bisects two different zones?
So the lot that I'm in question is right here.
I see.
So you're in a residence A, double A, I'm sorry, and in a business. You can encroach into this residence AA by 30 feet, but it's still not enough for most, when you're a business, you want to use all of it. So this zone line would be better served by coming along the back, let's say, of the property and encompassing it. And I think that would probably apply to a bunch of these lots. Like this lot here, these two lots should in essence be in the business zone completely and not be transected. So this one in particular, because it's vacant, but there's been multiple attempts to try and get a business in there, and it's not worked because of that zoning line in particular is what's holding it back.
They've gone before ZBA?
Yes.
It's weird, okay, I feel conflicted about this because I don't want to change something just because of one property.
Right, that's why I'm saying that I'm talking about, let's say, expansion of business zones throughout town. So it wouldn't just be changing the business for this one lot. It would be looking at, let's say, expanding business zones or the existing business zones throughout town.
What's the pitfall for the unwary? Because there is, the two sections of town do have their own characteristics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's mostly like, like McDonald's and, and how does, VCA must have, because that was a medical place before, did they get a variance and that's how they were able to locate there?
Well, they're in the business zone, I think everything that they do is out front, so they're allowed.
Okay, all right.
They just can't use any of that back property. It just, it constricts the use, it's not favorable for either. It's a failure for the residential component and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn here, I
No.
didn't raise my hand. But it doesn't work for either, so.
If you could just state your name for the
Oh,
record.
I'm Denise
Yeah.
Clinton, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
And not to overcomplicate it, but while we're on the subject, is there businesses allowed, and I know there are, but what businesses are allowed in the agricultural recreation too? Because I know there's a lot of properties that bisect a resident and agricultural
Like where are you looking specifically?
So agricultural is, the uses permitted are conservation areas for water, water supply, plants and wildlife, and dams necessary for achieving this purpose. Farming and horticulture, including raising, harvesting, and storing crops, truck gardening, cranberry bogs, grazing, and the raising of poultry. Orchards, nurseries, forests, and tree farms. Single-family detached dwellings with one of the uses permitted in paragraph A through C, which is what I just read above.
Okay.
So what I'm bringing to the committee is more like, here's a thought, what do you think? If there's no appetite for it, then I wouldn't even bother pursuing it.
No, I mean, I would very much like, like I think I understand, like what we're saying is that the way that section, that's just business, is structured on Liberty Street, it's structured such that the businesses that are there couldn't really grow much more than what they are, and new businesses would struggle to locate, certain new businesses, certain kinds of new businesses, would struggle to even locate there and start a business.
Right, that law on its own, just on its own, there's been 3 attempts and just it fails. Now, the applicants can, with a citizen's petition, pursue to change, to get, let's say, that lot completely in a business zone. They can do that on their own and ask, go through the whole process and ask for the zone line to be changed and that back portion that's residential be placed into the business. They can do that on their own. It's not necessarily the town has to engage in
Yeah.
it. This is more like, if we're looking for, attempting to try and, let's say, economic development and get business, and we know that we're limited, let's say, land area-wise, and Hanson's not the type of town that's gonna be getting, let's say, 1 million square foot Amazon warehouse or large manufacturing, Ford's not gonna be here building cars, then we have to look at, okay, well, how can we accommodate these businesses or sub-businesses? In the time that I've been here, in speaking with the building inspector, the zoning department, there's been a lot of, and being in on some meetings with them, there's been a lot of interest in businesses trying to get into town and just not having a place to go. So I think we're losing, to some degree, revenue or potential business. So it's more like, what I'd like to do is to say, okay, let's look at our existing business zones and what's outside of them. Is there anything that, should we expand them? Can we expand them? The flexible overlay, it's sort of if you expand the flexible overlay, let's say along Main Street, it might lend itself to adding to, let's say, the MBTA, multifamily zoning type of deal, but you're also getting that business on the ground floor aspect of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I'm fine with both. Within the footprint of where we've already said the businesses can locate, I just don't want to start getting into residential beyond
Yeah, no,
that.
I'm not looking to reinvent the wheel here. It's more like expand what we have, not saying, hey, let's go put a business, I don't know, in the northeast corner of town or something. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Just thinking about Main Street in particular, north, around, on the other side of High Street up to 58. If that's commercial industrial, if I'm reading that right now, is that correct? Because the overlay stops at High Street?
Yes, so this up in here,
Yeah.
this is all, if we look at the screen, this is all commercial industrial. That's the industrial park,
Yeah,
and so that's all commercial industrial. But there's a well,
yeah.
there's a well out
Yeah.
there, so a lot of that land's wet and
Yeah.
it's in the well, so.
But then you get up to High Street.
Right, so
And
it ends
from
at, so
there-
it ends at High Street, so, I was like, well, maybe, if, let's say we expanded just one street over, maybe, maybe consider looking at that,
What could,
But across the street, it's commercial industrial, right? Am I reading that right?
This up here is commercial industrial.
This here, though?
No, that is Residence B.
I see, okay. I'm just
Yeah,
reading the line.
that's
wrong.
Residence B.
Okay,
yeah.
got it. Okay.
So residence B, what can I do?
Residence B,
Maybe that's the one that's like really limited, like, I don't.
It's
like-
30,000 square feet and 150 feet of frontage.
Okay,
And obviously, Residence B is uses permitted, all uses permitted in Residence A district, section B1.
I remember that's where the hobby shop was.
that's why I think
Yeah.
it's got like limited, there's like,
Someone wanted to do
Yeah.
something with that old hobby shop spot and couldn't.
well, they, don't get me going on
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
anyway. They wanted to make it a multifamily.
Yeah,
Yeah, so in Residence B, which is the uses permitted in a Residence A, it's single-family boarding houses or rooming houses, not more than 4 persons,
Yep.
public and parochial schools, hospitals, playgrounds, churches, or parish houses.
okay.
Fields, pastures, woodlots, greenhouses, and farms is permitted in agricultural, except that piggeries shall not be allowed in this district. Display and sale or offering for sale of farm produce and related products, provided the major portion of produce is raised within town. And provided no stands located within 25 feet of the street line. They have accessory uses, including normal accessories, uses as private garages, storage sheds, tennis courts, swimming pools, cabanas for swimming pools, and a structure approved by the civil defense authorities and designed for use by inhabitants, employees, or customers of the property to which it is necessary, and used for shelter from natural disaster or war.
That's interesting,
Isn't it?
very interesting.
First time I read that, I thought that was very interesting as well.
Yes, it's a very specific area for a very specific, yeah, use, okay. Does make me want to find out who's got the bomb shelters in there.
So for something like a nursery, for instance, that's allowable in a residence zone? The way it was written, it almost sounded like it was only allowable in agricultural recreation.
Well,
In this map.
let's say a Residence B, when they talk about A, it says, what was that? Display for selling farm produce, related products.
In B.
Yeah. Uses A, B, and C permitted in an agricultural recreation district. That's allowed in Residence A. What I'm getting at is, what I'm trying not to complicate here is just, we have business zones. Should we look at expanding them, the existing business zones, sort of branching out, going out a little further than where they are now? And whether it's a block over or, but if there's not, I look at it, it's like if there's not an interest or an appetite for it, then I'm not gonna spend the time to pursue it, you know?
Have you talked to the assessor about it, what her thoughts are?
I have had minor discussions with her about it. She was for it, though she didn't think it would probably fly, you know? But it would increase revenue. for-
I don't know that they'd be, well, I mean, other than maybe some of the folks that live right near there, I don't think in general the town is gonna be up in arms with that type of a change. But I don't know, I might be surprised. There is this notion, like I said, there's this kind of a mixed message that we want to grow our commercial industrial base so that we don't pay as much in taxes, which we'd have to grow it enormously for that to happen, but that nevertheless, that is one, kind of like the way that, I've heard some people discuss it. It's rather simplistic, because right now, we're like 98% residential. You'd have to move that needle, it would have to be like an Amazon warehouse, like it would have to be
Yeah.
something like that. But that's not all that economic development is about. You want to have a town where people can have a business where they live and where people can shop where they live. It isn't just about additional tax revenue. That, of course, is awesome. We're all about tax revenue. But it's about having a vibrant community, not having a bunch of empty buildings instead of having businesses there, and having businesses that people can use so that you're helping people grow their business and you're able to shop locally and all of that. So I think that would be why I would support it.
If I could.
Oh, feel free, it's me that you, yeah, yeah.
I that's like really important for what, the reason I'm here. Because the community has more, it's more attractive to bring people in. And I'm in all fields of real estate, whether it's mostly commercial, but residential. And yeah, people don't want to have to go to 2 towns over to do that. Like, why can't it be here? And so people look at that when they're deciding where to live. And there's so much opportunity that's sort of just, you know, I just feel like it's stagnant. And I have this urge to, like, I don't know, pop that balloon and like let people do, let it grow. And even the spot right here that you're showing where Liberty and the satellite's right outside our door here, if that, you know, there are some businesses like that go beyond it. They're smaller, like in-home type business or the dentist or
Yeah,
what have you.
yeah.
Even if it only went up there, who, you know, there's a parcel that's can be developed right at the satellites, right on the corner. Who wants to build a house there? Who wants to live where there's satellites and, you know, commercials all around you? It's sort of crying out to be some commercial type business when you're at a satellite and you're near the shop, all the shopping, rather than, you know, residential. I'm talking about right at the intersection. But it's just, it's hard to explain to people that, you know, nothing's really changed, or, you know, it is what it is, I don't know what's gonna change. So it's more than, like you said, Laura, more than just the tax.
Oh, that said, I don't want this to be
Yeah.
Route 1 in Saugus.
Right.
So
I don't think it would ever be.
You know, because we're Hanson. We don't want to be Route 1 in Saugus. That's not what we want to look like.
But a
So-
couple of blocks out from the
Yeah,
lights.
strategically though, there's some small changes
Yeah.
that could be made,
Yeah.
that could present, like that lot that's divided, doesn't make any sense.
That doesn't make any
I mean,
sense.
you've had 3 people want to open a business there, and we
Oh,
can't.
that's just this sale now.
Yeah,
Where I sold it for Bo, I had
yeah.
probably a half a dozen people, and they're setting up shop somewhere else.
So what kinds of businesses? You don't have to say who it is, but just like.
No, I wouldn't say who it is,
Yeah.
but, you know, different, various. I had one guy that, this was previous to this current situation, that has a very successful business in Weymouth, generators and things like that.
Yeah.
Who doesn't need like that kind of shop where you can go? And we tied it up for months and got nowhere. And he just said, I
Yeah.
gotta move on.
Yeah.
And he did, and he, so even something like that, but, you know, there's even a landscaper or, you know, and there's a lot of different. The
Okay.
point is that what happens is they get so far, and then it's useless.
Yeah.
And so that's what I was saying earlier, what good is anything that's useless when it can be correct, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know if corrected is the right word, but if it was one thing or the other, but then you take a lot like that or the one across the way, it's not really the spot to be residential. I mean,
Yeah, you would.
unless you
No,
give me the
no.
lot, I don't want to
Yeah.
live there.
Yeah.
It's sort of crying out, like, here I am, let me build something, and,
It's so
know?
odd there must be some history on why it ended up the way that it did. Do you think it was just inartful when when that overlay was done?
Probably. I mean, it might have been done by lay people that didn't fully understand what they were doing, or I
does
don't
it,
know.
do you know that, like, is there any way to know, like, when those current zones were, like, established?
Yeah, you can't find that out, but I couldn't tell you, like, why, was that the bylaw committee at the time, did they look at the zoning map and say, well, let's put it here? What was their thought process? I don't know. I really
It's
don't.
just so strange. It's like,
It seems to me strategically asking to like, well, I love the idea of increasing the overlay district. You know, it's easy for me to say I don't live on that end of Main Street, right? Thinking about the townspeople, it seems to me doing some of these small strategic changes on some of these key areas, like right out here is a perfect example. Or
I
that
don't-
one
yeah.
or that one that's.
and that section
in
right
2
there,
zones.
there are a few, well, mostly it's Alden, Stringer, and Gray, but they're set back a
Yeah,
ways.
yeah.
They're not right at the road. And then you've got Meeting House Lane, and of course, you're gonna have the Ritter project. And that's gonna be multi-unit housing, set back a bit. So I don't really think changing that little chunk right there, and then up the road a bit, to that intersection, I don't see how that would wildly adversely impact anybody. You've even got a car dealership on that other side, which is for
Right.
sale across from, you
Right
know.
at that light.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like, so I just don't see, I don't think that there'd be any negative impact of it. I can't imagine any anyway, right now.
Yes, yeah, like I said, it's not a case of looking to create new business zones. It's more like expanding some of the areas that we have.
No, I just sort of think of as like painting a swath down where it should be.
Yeah.
Just kind of like, we'll be Bob Ross and just do a little swath down there on the left and clean it up. That's kind of what, I don't think it's not like monumental,
It's like taking the handcuffs off.
yeah.
It's, I mean, I'm
It's like
obviously,
we could be the key, or you folks could be the key to that.
I mean, this is a learning experience for me, but I don't understand how one lot could be in two zones. Is that common?
It happens, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably
I was-
historic.
Subdivided over the years, or like, when they,
Yeah, I was involved some years ago, was in a different municipality where there was a lot that was adjacent to a business zone, and the owner wanted to put a business, and he couldn't, so he went through the process, the town meeting, and got the zone line changed, and was able to get his lot put into the business zone. And,
But, I don't want to be a town where somebody has to, where the only way people are gonna get changes is through citizens petition. That means something's broken. So I think, I don't have a problem with this change. And walk me through, if we do a change, there's public hearings, right?
Yes, yeah,
So
those-
it's not like we just railroad this and
No.
cram
No.
it down people's throat at
No.
town meeting,
Nope.
and there'd be no, ability for public to
No.
weigh in and express what their concerns are.
The zoning act is very clear on how zoning amendments are proposed, including changing the zoning lines. There's a whole process, public hearings, it has to go to town meeting, it then gets
Is
approved
it
by the attorney
different
general.
for like a lot that's all residential versus a lot that's dual to changing? Like, is there a different format?
No, the
going
process is
forward?
the same. Section 5 talks about amendments, and you have to follow the process. You notify the surrounding towns, it's a whole thing. This isn't, town planner decided to change the zoning, and bam, the next day it's changed. Nope. Has to
And
go
just for
through.
the record, none of us have any property
No.
there and would not personally benefit, just
for the record,
for those who want
Like I
to
said,
plant seeds of
I
doubt.
brought this up because there's discussion, we need revenue, we need business, we need growth. So it's like, okay, well, we don't have necessarily large tracts of land, again, we're gonna create a new industrial zone. Then, okay, well, what about expanding our business zone just a little bit?
Well, that is
Yeah.
one of the things we've talked about, is what are the impediments to people locating here or expanding their business? And this seems like like a tangible impediment. I mean, that this is real. We've got somebody telling us that on multiple occasions, she's had a variety of different businesses, something's failed here.
I'm even thinking about a conversation I told you about with a business owner along that line, where I look at the way that that's painted, they're considering expanding their business. I don't think they could, looking at that,
Yeah.
without having to, jump through hoops for it.
And I don't want, if it's yes, could each of those people go to ZBA potentially? But that seems like kind of the wrong solution, that people have to go to ZBA to effectuate something that should be common sense and have been taken care of already. That just doesn't,
And another thing is, the process requires fees to be paid,
Yeah.
and application fees and things like that, that people don't wanna go through if they don't see it going through.
Well, as a
yeah.
business owner, you'd
Yeah,
be hesitant
exactly,
to jump
yeah.
off,
Exactly,
both
yeah.
feet in if you didn't know for
You don't
sure.
wanna- yeah.
I'd be curious, because I think this would come to bear, and if there's some easy way to figure this out, Virginia probably would know. I'd be curious how many hearings we've had on that swath of land for a ZBA.
Just that one, we're talking about that one
Yeah,
particular lot?
just that one swath, no, not just that one lot.
Oh, that whole
little
swath?
The
That whole
swath
stretch
of
of Liberty
Orange.
Street?
I'd like to know, because that's town resources, that's money people have had to pay, and we've got businesses there, so we know some people have been successful. I don't know if Ed Sheehan I know he had to go through conservation, I don't know if he had to go through ZBA, I don't know what VCA had to go through, but I'm just genuinely curious, like, what have people had to go through? One of the things we keep talking about is, what are the impediments for people to locate in Hanson?
When the old VCA hospital was for sale down on Main Street, that was because it's not in a business zone. The use was, there was, use and so forth, they had to go to ZBA to get, so that, there was an impediment there, because that is not located in a business zone. It was a business.
Yep.
But it was, see the special permit. So now if it was just in a business zone and you can have something there by right, because of the uses in business, that property would have been, so I think we're losing something,
Yep.
we're sort of losing a bit. And so I'd just like to explore, hey, what about just expanding some of these business zones, making things, to get a little more business in town? And again, this would be more storefronts, it's not Target, it's not Amazon, it's in essence, small businesses. I think Hanson probably, their business base is more than likely, always probably gonna be small business base.
Yeah.
I mean, we have some opportunity, again, as we've spoken in the past, near the industrial park, for something there, but that's different, that's commercial industrial. And yeah, as you saw, the Hawks Ave Crooker Place area, there's commercial industrial, which, it is an odd place. It makes sense because Hubble was there, so they were a business in the commercial, they were industry, so it made sense. I don't know if it necessarily makes sense today.
No,
for
it's
something
just
down,
that.
for something down there, but.
What's funny to me is that when the proposal, people were misinformed about the fact that we wanted to have a marijuana facility there, but when the proposal to allow light control to be used for anything really, and for us to lease it came up, people lost their minds, and the thing that people kept saying is, well, we don't want all kinds of commercial and industrial vehicles, but in fact, they're in the middle of an industrial and commercial zone. I mean, they're right there, the people that were saying something about it. So it's surprising to me, because that wasn't actually brought up as a counter argument, like, well, you're in that zone, so that's always been the possibility of the use of that property. Sometimes people don't know that when they buy a property, they don't do their due diligence.
Like there was a property at the end of Crooker Lane that was for sale, and someone attempted to put a business down there, and that was shut down. Now, this is on the other side of the railroad track. And there was issue of access, but again, it's in the commercial industrial zone. The other thing too is Crooker Place itself as a street, would not lend itself to having industry at the end of that street.
No.
For vehicles to go up
Yeah.
and down.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you look at that and go, yeah, that's probably something that shouldn't be in a commercial industrial zone anymore, because realistically, it doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
know.
Yeah.
So again, this was a case of bringing this to, as you are the Economic Development Committee, how do you feel about looking at potentially expanding some of the business zones? And again, as I've said in the past with other projects, this is step 1 of 100.
Yeah.
And looking and examining things,
Does anybody have any, concerns with it?
Well, before we get to that, I just had another question, just thought of. What about adding, is there a potential to add uses rather than expanding the zones?
Well, if you add the uses,
But that would be the flexibility.
then it becomes, you also have to go special permits through the ZBA and all that. And they can't allow a use under a special permit that's not allowed. So,
But are you saying to change the uses for say, allow more uses under the business
Exactly.
district.
Okay.
You know, if you're zoned as a business district,
So
like,
get a little more specific with the amount of, or types of businesses that could be put in the business zone. Is that fair? Is that what?
Yeah, that would be fair. But also, I mean, it kind of speaks to the lot you were speaking of before too, that certain businesses are trying to locate there and they can't. And it's not, it's probably not 100% because
It's not
of
even the
the.
use, it's
Yeah.
the quirky
Okay,
zoning.
It's not being able,
okay.
it's not being able to utilize the
The lot.
Yeah.
1.8 acres
Okay.
of land.
So for that lot in particular, it's not the use. It's
Correct.
Yes.
just okay, gotcha.
you're buying the whole lot, but you can only use
Yeah.
half of it, or
Yeah.
whatever, a third of it, or
Yeah.
whatever, I don't know, but you can't use all of it, basically.
Well,
It's a bit slow today.
The other
you're
thing
paying
is
for all of
the
it.
other thing is a requirement, like we were talking about, would be 44,000 square feet. What was the, so that whole lot wouldn't even be 44,000 square feet anyway, would it?
That lot was, I believe, 1.8 acres, almost 2
Okay.
acres.
Yeah.
And
Okay, yeah. So that would be enough.
webpage is being slow.
We have had an engineer, Webby engineer who's designed plans and it's without meeting all the setbacks. Really, everything has been done, it's just, it's hard to say, buy this for, $500,000, but you can't use that part. But
Yeah,
you'll have to pay taxes.
yeah,
Don't use it. It's like kind of doing a deal halfway.
yeah. So, I like your idea. So what would the next step be, Tony? I would assume planning needs to weigh in on this.
Yes, this is something I would speak to the planning board about as well, zoning board, and just open the dialogue and go from there. Right now, this, like I said, it's a matter of opening dialogue to try and get an idea of if there's any interest in it.
Well, I think
Yeah.
we're interested.
Yeah, I think
I don't
we're
think we
definitely-
have any, strong opposition to it.
I mean, if it was a case of, if I go to the different boards and they all said, no way, forget about it, done, okay, won't even bother.
I don't think
But
you're
if there,
gonna
but if
find
there's,
that.
but if there's
Yeah.
like, yeah, let's take a look at it, let's talk about it, let's take a look at it, let's see what we can do, and then, okay, well, let's do that.
I also think if we did it for that particular lot, then it makes sense to kind of make the whole thing.
Oh, I don't think
zone.
he's saying just to do it for
No,
that.
yeah, I know,
Yeah.
but I'm saying if we did, I think that we have to be fair and do it for, quite a few.
Yeah, we'd have to, it'd be a hard examination of all the lots along the business zone to say, okay, this lot, this should all, if it's gonna be in a business zone, put it all in a business zone. That way, whoever
Yes.
wants to put a business on there can use 100% of the property.
Yep, yeah.
It doesn't make sense to like we said, buy 2 acres of land and only find out I can use half acre for my business,
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we're in agreement that, that sounds viable, and we think it's a good idea, and,
At the first step of May.
it's first, yeah, just.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
That's the one thing that I want everyone to understand, that it's
Yeah.
one step of 100, the first step, it's about opening the dialogue and seeing what, because if we're, at Hanson as a town, we know we need the revenue. We know that for a fact, and we're limited to our ability to expand, so we have to make best use of what we do have to expand.
Yep,
Sort of trying to build houses without cutting down more trees.
all right, well, thanks for bringing it to our attention, because I think, this is one of the things we appreciate about you, is, I hate the expression thinking out of the box, but for lack of something else, because my brain's addled. This is good, it's provocative, it moves us, it pushes us a little bit out of our comfort zone, out of just assuming that the way things are is the way that they always have to be. And so I look forward to hearing what the planning board has to say about it.
Okay.
We hear a primal scream, we'll know it didn't go well. but-
Yeah, like I said, if it gets to the point where it's don't even bother, I won't even bother, I'll move on to something else, Like, my position's always been, look, I'll throw out the ideas and see how it goes. For me, one way or another, I don't wanna use the word that it doesn't matter, but I don't take it personally. I'm trying to bring ideas to help the town get revenue, grow, and prosper. It's up to the people. If the people say, no, we don't want that, okay,
Yeah.
you don't want it, you know,
Yep.
it's fine, you know?
Well, this should be interesting to see how it evolves. I never like to predict things, because things I think will be a slam dunk frequently aren't, and,
Yeah, I never try.
yeah.
Yeah, you know, people are always afraid of change, it's a fact.
You
Dealt with
may
it-
want to
it de-
come to
yeah.
a select board meeting too, and talk to us about that. And, you know, just conceptually, like after you've talked to planning and ZBA, just conceptually, just so that you've got all the various stakeholders kind of understanding what you're saying and hearing it from you firsthand.
Right.
That it's not a foregone conclusion, there's public hearings, there's opportunities to influence the way it looks, and then just see what people have got to say.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments on that? Thank you for your input on that, that was helpful. And then that moves us, and I'm afraid I'm really off the mark on, at 7:25, we were supposed to be discussing the expansion, oh, well, wait a minute, we kind of moshed both of those
I did.
subjects together. Okay, all right, so that's great, so I'm still wildly off target, but not as bad as I thought it was. All right, that brings us to Economic Committee outreach letter. Did you guys have an opportunity to read that? I mean, I
We-
think we've seen it,
Yeah.
Yeah, we've sent it out.
yeah.
We've sent it out to the various businesses. We have had some letters come back, you know, non-deliverable. There's been a couple of businesses that are no longer in business.
Have you guys been updating like Beth, and I know we got it, that database was like a combo of assessors and town clerk, like.
We haven't updated her yet. We
Okay.
were just waiting to see, give it time to see what comes back. But now that we have letters that have come back, we can let her know, hey, these are the ones we've sent to these businesses, and
Yeah, I don't know what her process is, like, I don't know if she needs a couple of pieces of return mail to remove them off of her list, or, I don't know what her process is, but I'm sure she'd want to know that you got it as return mail, because they're closed businesses.
I have access, as I think I've said before, I have access to the EDC email. Haven't received any emails, I check it every day, it's right under my own personal email address for the town, so I haven't seen anything.
Now, we do have a woman who's interested in locating her therapy practice at, she really likes that Plymouth County Hospital, the front part of that building. And she's got Rock Haven Counseling, she'll actually be at Economic, at our Hanson Day on Saturday. And I've told her that we applied for a grant to rehabilitate that building, and that really until we have money to rehabilitate that building, it will not comply with building codes such that anybody could do business in the front of that building. But I just thought I'd mention that she continues to express interest in the front of that building.
Yeah, I did see your email, and I didn't know if you, if she would be interested in discussing anything at the committee, or?
Well, I thought maybe, she said she was gonna be away for the month of October, so I was thinking maybe we could have her come and talk to us. I mean, it's, you know, and just have a conversation, and, you know, because I had walked the building with her at one point, and, you know, it's got a lot of potential. The front of that building has a lot of potential to be used. But it also needs a little spiffing up, to put it mildly. And we've got, you know, inconvenient little things like ADA compliance and those types of things, fire suppression, some of those other, you know,
What's
technical.
the septic like there?
Yeah,
It's
it's,
tied into the existing.
there's an existing septic, which the food pantry uses. And anecdotally, I can tell you there are nights when the food pantry says don't flush the toilets, so I'd say it was not the greatest. That definitely would need to be addressed, but the High Street Committee folks I know are thinking about bathroom facilities up there, and
I know that, I believe.
I'm not gonna open that Pandora's box this evening, because I'm
Yeah,
just
but
too
I-
tired to have a productive conversation about it, but,
I believe they're looking to all the aspects of it, from septic to, all the aspects that would be related, including the septic.
yeah, because one of the concerns that they had expressed was, I had heard that the High Street committee had wanted to kind of use the same septic that the food pantry was using, and as I said, there's already some concerns. Although our health agent has said that it is fine, I know that they have experienced problems. And like 5 years ago, they had to get an auger out there to cut tree roots that were growing into the system, because, it hadn't been used, and there's trees, and it's old and all that. So, and then there were concerns about the bathroom becoming an attractive nuisance, because when you put that bathroom next to the food pantry, which has got food, and then the beekeepers have got all kinds of equipment upstairs, and yes, they've got security devices and all of that, but you've now introduced an element of why people would have an excuse to be in close proximity to that building, which right now, there'd be no reason, unless you're a volunteer for one of those organizations, you'd have no legitimate reason to be close to the business, to the building. So they were concerned about that, and then they were concerned about the thought that the bathroom would be heated using electricity from the building, because the food pantry now pays for all of the electricity, and they are 501c3. And all of their funds exclusively need to go to the benefit of patrons. They cannot be subsidizing a bathroom for the High Street park. So given all that, I did mention that to Mr. Ellis at the select board meeting when they gave a High Street update. I also mentioned it under separate cover to Mr. Weeks, and tried to get the food pantry president in touch with Mr. Weeks to have that conversation. I'm mentioning it to you because I know you go to those High Street Park meetings, and I just wanted to put that bee in your bonnet.
Yeah, I'm aware of that,
Okay.
that stuff.
Okay,
I attend those meetings as they need me,
great.
so I'm trying to give direction.
None of which was on our agenda, and we're not deliberating, but I just thought I'd give you an update. Okay, so on the letter, I'll ask Melissa if she wants to attend. She's the one from Rockhaven.
Now, the next question becomes, now that we've sent out the letters, do you think now you'll take the next step of phone calls or
Well,
visitations?
we had talked about dividing and conquering.
Divide and conquer?
I'm wondering if we should get through Hanson Day, and then in our next meeting, we should think about the strategy that we want to take for contact. I'm more than willing to just knock door to door, but I
Because
think.
it'll be
I
past
think-
Hanson Day and town meeting.
Yes, I think we should have consistent talking points and questions, if we're going out, like, I don't want everybody ad-libbing. I'd like us to have, like, I'm from the Economic Development Committee, and we're in the
So-
process of doing da-da-da, and,
So maybe,
you know.
maybe when we meet with Whitman Hanson Cable, they might be able to provide you with a script, so to speak.
all right, well, we'll see on that. But let's plan on talking about that at our next meeting. I'm looking at you so that it's on the agenda, but I know Tony's putting it, but anyway. Okay, next meeting, when shall we meet?
You could do the 25th of October.
25th of October, seems so far away.
You could do the 18th of October.
Yeah, that week is, like, I've got jury duty, it's just, I'll spare you all the details, but that
Which
week
week?
is bad. But the 25th, that last week is better for me. What about you guys?
I am out of town for work that whole
For the
week,
25th week?
unfortunately, the 23rd to the 27th.
23rd to the 27th, okay?
We could zoom you in. No?
No, I'm just thinking, that,
Do we want to do the week following town meeting, the week of the 9th?
If you want do the 11th?
I know it's only a couple weeks away, but
We can do the
do we want to do the 11th?
That works.
Okay.
So you want to make a motion?
Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think so.
October 11th, same time.
Same time, same bat channel.
Do you want to vote on it just for the procedure?
Sure, I will entertain a motion.
Would the committee be opposed to starting at 7? And that way, like I know I'm
The committee.
tied up to 6:30.
Oh, no, that's fine.
So rather than just
Yeah,
vote, say we're doing it at 6:30 and I'm not gonna be here till
Be fine.
6:45.
Yeah.
Okay,
Is
so
that
I
okay?
will entertain a motion to schedule our next meeting for October 11th to begin at 7 PM.
Perfect.
I am entertaining that motion.
I will make that motion.
One second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. Okay. Anything else that we should be covering? Okay. All right, well then, with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, great. And that will end our meeting for this evening.